When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world.
I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings! You're watching SeptumSin versus the world. I'm SeptumSin. Old age. We experience it in some form or another. Be it with our grandparents, when we're young, our own parents when we're older, or of course experience with those we meet on the street, in film, or even other media. This is something that if we do not die young, we are inevitably destined to experience ourselves one day. This is the subject for our review of Wrinkles. This DVD has some features such as the English dub track, for those who are interested and are not really interested in the original Spanish version of the film. And of course we have the trailer and a brief behind-the-scenes featurette. The last of these is a feature-length full animatic of the film. I'm not an animator. I really don't have a lot of interest in this area of the film. This is where I feel this is geared towards for somebody who really is interested in animation. After watching the film 2 times, I really didn't feel the need to go through the full animatic version. It seems like I could be watching something better. So in the end, I really don't consider these special features to be all that great overall. This is a G-Kids release, and I've had good experience with G-Kids. They are re-releasing practically the entire Studio Ghibli catalog. And with my experience on related films such as Only Yesterday and The Ocean Waves, I know that we have a good bit of quality for their chosen releases. These are not just limited to Japanese acquisitions. Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea, they are also excellent films. Most of the films I have seen released by these people are of quality. So, I'd never really heard of this indie Spanish film prior to, well, a chance introduction through a friend through Movies Galore. He was selling a number of these DVDs that he had picked up, and this one just stuck out to me. So I said, you know what? You gotta add this G-Kids release. So, let's talk about the film itself. Wrinkles, or Arrugas, as was in the original format. I'm not sure if I'm getting the pronunciation right, but those of you, well, it's going to be harder to to tell me in the comments. Maybe you can sound it out or something through letters. It's a Spanish-made animated film about growing old. Emilio has been taken to a retirement home by his family as they can no longer care for him. He meets a more experienced person in the form of his roommate, Miguel, and they begin their adventures together on the last stages of their lives. So there are a number of positives in this film. The voice acting is actually very well done. I'm not as good a judge on any type of voice acting that's not English, or maybe a little bit for French, because I'm not as familiar culturally with inflections, but it did sound of quality to me. But the English voice acting, for those of you who are doing it, this is a safe bet. We have big names like Martin Sheen, and Matthew Modine, who are known for their live-action roles, and even a seasoned voice actor in the way of George Coe of Archer theme. This makes the English track not just watchable, but enjoyable. I feel like these artists were involved in their characters, and I did feel solidly involved in the film. The story is also very thought-provoking. It's able to pull at the emotions, which I feel is the aim, and whenever a film strikes that chord, whenever a film gets what it sets out to do, that means that that film is done well. It's a very powerful message. I was tearing up a couple of times, and I really don't do that much anymore. It takes a good amount to get me to cry all out, but just having me there, it just was something. It struck a chord for me several times throughout the film. I've actually worked in nursing care at one time or another in my younger years. And I feel like they've handled this very well. The people who wrote the original graphic novel did their research, and of course the adaptation was spot on. I could see all of the different little stories playing a part around the main one, and this to me was good. I felt that the writing, the research, the reality of the film molded very well, and just in general added to it. Last but not least is the music. Spanish films in general have good music, and I felt this suited the film quite well. And though the first time it didn't grab my attention as fully as it should have, in the second viewing I was able to get a better appreciation for it. I feel like when I was watching the sub, which was my first view, I wasn't able to pay as much attention to that. I'm usually paying a lot more attention to reading the subtitles and trying to get the visuals, that the music sometimes gets left out. But if you get a chance, listen to the soundtrack. It is well worth it in most Spanish films. So as with most films, there are negatives. There isn't a lot in this film. There's just a few minor gripes. I feel the animation quality was good, but at the same time, I didn't feel like it stood out in any major way. It wasn't overly original or ambitious, nor did it come across as something bright and colorful. It just came across as something as simplistic and to the point. The animation quality was not needed to tell the story. As a matter of fact, the quality was very much up to the task of just following the story. But as far as the animation itself standing out, it fell short in that aspect. And of course, the narrative is heavy. This means that the film really isn't good for just any old time. You gotta be very much ready for this type of film. It's not a Grave of the Fireflies, but it is a quite heavy narrative. And though they do try to lighten it up with a few moments of levity, I do feel that the narrative itself was a lot heavier than these pieces were able to elevate it to. So you do need to watch, and if you find it difficult to watch really sad films, don't watch this. If you don't mind a slightly sad yet enlightening piece, however, this is for you. Though I do not consider this film to be one that can be watched all the time, and the special features are only okay at best, I still consider this film a very good piece of work. And most should take a look at this. We all struggle with the concept of old age in some form throughout our lives, and this film brings that struggle home in a way that is meaningful and insightful. I would give Wrinkles an 8. Well, an 8 out of 10. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review. I don't get many out these days, but I do like to try and get something out when I see something that I feel like people haven't seen that needs that attention, whether I love it, hate it, or it's in the middle. But especially if I really love or hate something. So, if you like this review, click the like button. Of course, if you enjoy what you're seeing, subscribe. And of course, share with others. What are your thoughts on Wrinkles? Have you seen this before? Did you hear about it before my review? If you watch it because of my review, do you agree with my opinions? I always like to know, and I will hopefully see you in the comments. Take care.
Goodbye.